everyone. Welcome to Labeled Organizing. My name is Sarah, professional organizer out of Nashville, Tennessee. I also accept online clients. So if you're interested in working with me, you can go to my website at labeledorganizing.com, click the contact button, and we can talk about your project. Okay, so very exciting times, you guys. We are starting video with the podcast. It may not be every episode, but I had it as part of my goal list to start doing some video because in the next few months, we are going to have some guests on the show for the very first time. So I want to go ahead and get a few videos going. And then that way it's just second nature to record both audio and video. And so for those of you just listening, if you normally listen to the show and you're kind of excited that we're going to YouTube, you can find us at youtube.com/labeledorganizing. We're going to have an account there, and this will be the first episode that's listed. And then, like I said, as we get going, we're going to have some interviews, and that's just going to make it a little bit easier of a transition. Speaking of transitions, I am going to be working a few times this summer in Indianapolis. For those of you who have listened for a while, you know that at some point I had moved back to Indianapolis and had some clients there. And so I do try to go back up during the summer and help them out. And so I've got my regular clients, and then I do try to throw in some consultations. I will do a 30-minute consultation for free one time if you live in the Indianapolis area or if you're in Nashville. And I will also do Louisville, Kentucky, because that's kind of an in-between. So if you live anywhere up and down Interstate 65 between Nashville and Indianapolis, and you're wanting some help this summer and you're interested in a consultation, you can reach out to me at labeledorganizing.com, click the contact button, and we can figure out a day and a time that we can come do that. Now, like I said, I can do a 30-minute consultation for free one time, or I can do a paid 1-hour consultation. So what's the difference? A half-hour consultation is me popping in, meeting you briefly, 5 or 10 minutes, and saying, okay, show me around, or show me what your problem area is. And then I will give a little bit of advice, but the bigger thing that I'm going to do is basically say, okay, I think this is what your plan needs to be. And it's going to be more of a timeline, and it's going to be more of just an overall broad picture of what I think you should be doing, and maybe just give you like one step that you can take to go in the direction you want to go in. A full 1-hour consultation is actually going to be a paid consultation. So there's going to be a lot more feedback. There's going to be observations. There's going to be some notes. I may even suggest, if you are open to a DIY project, that we go ahead and kind of put together a little bit of a plan for you. And then if you decide to do online consulting where you start the project, but you want to be able to reach out to me again and get some advice or figure out what next steps are, then we can actually put that together, and you would get a discount on any future online consultations if I met you in person and if we started a plan while I was there. So very exciting. I try to do that over the summer because my son's out of school and we're going to be back visiting family. And so it's just the perfect time to meet with some people. And, like I said, if you're open to a DIY project, it kind of gives you a head start to where by the time fall rolls around, if you're working on your kids' room or, maybe back to school is just a very stressful time and you want some advice, or you need like a mudroom cleanup, summer's just great to do all that stuff, pool stuff, sports equipment, anything that you pull out in the summer, even summer clothes or bathing suits. If you're traveling a lot and you need help with packing, some people do a packing consultation. And normally that involves me coming out and bringing some kind of packing cube, or just showing them what bags actually would work for the things that they have. Maybe part of your problem is you're just not using the right luggage. Maybe you think having a bigger piece of luggage is going to allow you to take more items on vacation, when in actuality, maybe if it is a hard shell piece of luggage. You're not able to position things like you would if you carried a soft bag. Or maybe you're using packing cubes, but you're not necessarily using them in a way where it's maximizing your space. So those are some of the things that we talk about if we do a travel consultation, and even packing beach bags or packing for the beach, whether it's coolers or, just your car. Some people, just aren't really comfortable with finding different open spaces to put stuff in, or maybe you need a car organizer. So those are a lot of the things that we can talk about if you do call me out to do a consultation. It doesn't always have to be pantries, closets, garages, playrooms. If you need something organized or you need to figure out something and you're just stuck, then that's where you can go. It just hit me, and I want to go ahead and say this. For those of you listening, this is something I never have to worry about because you're just hearing my voice. If you're watching on YouTube, I do have a problem with my eye, so it's not like I'm trying to ignore it. This happened to me back, I think it was during COVID. I had started wearing contacts again and thought I pinched my eye, but I guess it was just a busted blood vessel, so I apologize. It just hit me as I was recording that. For those of you watching, you're like, is she going to address the fact that, her eye's red? So I apologize for that. However, it was my goal today to start the video for this, and that's what I'm going to do because this is going to take about 2 weeks. So I did not want to wait another 2 weeks in order to get this ball rolling. So there, we have addressed that. I feel better now. Okay, so today let's talk about organizing excuses. Now, I'm sure some of you read that and you thought, great, I have lots of excuses. Let's get them organized. No, let's talk about excuses that people give to not organize. Okay, so they can range from, it's just not the right time for us. Okay, it can be very vague. I've gone out to work with clients and they're like, we really need to wait until our daughter leaves for college, and then we're going to use that room for XYZ. And then I ask them, okay, well, when is your daughter going to college? Oh, 2 to 3 years from now. And then the other thing that creeps up on them is, well, now that we're in her senior year, we've decided that she's going to stay home for a year, and then she's going to go live in the dorms, or then she's going to get her own place, or she may transfer. So one of the excuses that people give is it's just not the right time. We have these goals and we have a plan, but we don't have a concrete timeline. And I think some of that is just fear. It's fear that we're going to change something major, and what could that mean for us? What if it's a bad change? What if we spend all of this time and all of this money to make this change on our house? Or maybe we take a whole room and we designate something to that room. We hire people to move furniture. We hire an organizer to put it all together. Maybe we have a junk hauler come. What if we get rid of something we regret later? Maybe there's a piece of furniture we thought was trash, but then we could technically use it in another room for now. So people just get really caught up in their heads about it, and they start making excuses as to why they can't start something now. And the reason I thought about it today is because right before COVID, I was competing in fitness competitions again. And so I had my son in 2014. By that point, I had done 2 competitions in, 10 or 12 years. And I thought, I really want to get back into it. And so I did one in 2018. And then I built on top of that. I actually cut out Thanksgiving and Christmas as far as the food part. Not that I didn't celebrate those holidays, but I kept up with my routine and I built upon my progress. And then I competed in 2019. And what's interesting about that is it allowed me to take my progress to the next level. And so when COVID happened, that was another year that I was building. I was getting ready to level up, so to speak. And then COVID happened. And then I fell into the trap that a lot of us fall into, which is I can't go out right now. I can't work out. You know what? I've been so good with my eating. I think I'm going to splurge. Plus you have the emotional side of it. For those of you who are emotional eaters, it's like, okay, well, now I find myself having chocolate after every meal, or I'm going to reward myself by having, this super syrupy latte instead of making just a plain coffee at home. So we do that. We come up with all of these reasons why we're either going to do something or we're going to stop doing something or we're just going to redirect. So at that time, the excuse was, well, it's COVID. So who's going to be productive during COVID? And I remember at the time thinking, I bet there are going to be a lot of people who are stuck at home who are going to write books, or maybe they're going to find a way to start a business online, and that's something that they can do at home. So I was thinking to myself, I know a lot of people will find the silver lining in this, and the whole being stuck at home thing will actually help them, move on to the next thing that they want to do, and it's going to catapult them to the next level. And what happens is we can tell ourselves that it's just not the right time right now. I think down the road, we're going to do that. So with that excuse, let's just look at the fact that if there's something you want to do right now, and you say to yourself, I want to do this, but it's just not the right time, but it will be the right time 3 years from now, how in the world are you going to know what life is going to look like in 3 years? And actually, as we are starting the hoarding series, which we started the introduction to hoarding, I've already recorded episode 1 of 5 of the hoarding series. So that's going to be out soon. That's not going to be video, but it is already recorded. Episode 2 I talked about is going to be COVID hoarders. So a lot of the people that started hoarding either during COVID or post-COVID. And so some of these episodes that I'm doing in tandem with the hoarding series kind of have that same connection of, okay, during COVID, this happened. Or, we're talking about the hoarding spectrum, and that's going to be in episode 1. So a lot of people say, well, the only reason I'm doing this is because this happened. And sometimes it's valid. Sometimes it's an excuse. So when we talk about organizing excuses, reasons why we can't organize, we can talk about how, well, that's so far down the road and it's going to make so much more sense when we move, when we get rid of this, when we hear about what someone's going to do for us, whether it's a promotion, a job. I know a lot of kids right now are trying to figure out what colleges they're going to go to. So it's like, well, I can't figure this out until I figure this out. I do think there is a small window of time where this makes sense. Okay, so let's say, you are waiting to hear back on a job. Let's say you are actively in the job market and you've applied all of these places and you've interviewed at 2 or 3, and you really feel like you're at least going to get 1 offer, but you could get 2 or you could get 3. And so maybe you get that first offer and it's not your number 1. And you say, okay, well, let me just think about it. I'll get back with you. And there's just a certain window of time for you to make a decision, right? You can't say, okay, well, you know what? I'll get back to you in 3 months because something better may come along. And then I'll work for your company if it doesn't. So part of the excuse, problem is that we think something is going to come along while we're making a decision, and that's either going to make things really clear and it's going to, solidify the decision we're making, or it's going to just further encourage us and say, you know what, I am making the right decision. Like, I'm so glad I did this. And that's great when it happens, but sometimes you don't always have all the information you need to make a decision. And there are so many different things in life that happen that it does become stressful when you go through a period of time where you're trying to make decisions based on very little information, and you just struggle with, am I doing the right thing? And then all of a sudden, it's almost like all of your decisions end up bottlenecking, and you're like, I can't make any decision. And it's that whole paralysis of, I don't know what to do with my life. I don't know where to live. I don't know where to work. I don't know what things I need. I don't know what to get rid of. And so a lot of people go through it. But the worst thing that we can do is to continue to come up with excuses as to why we cannot do it now. And that's tough, because if we have a good excuse, then it not only gives us more time to figure out if the clear-cut option is going to come along or something is going to happen that we're like, oh, it's a clear sign from God. The heavens opened up and now I know exactly what to do. Not only does it leave us thinking that that will happen, which it doesn't always do, but it also allows us room to fail. Meaning, if we push that thing out and say, okay, we can't do that until our daughter leaves. Like, what are we going to do? Kick her out of the house? If you come up with an excuse that you can't follow through with your plan until a child leaves, then if the plan never comes together, then you can blame it on the fact that you're a good parent, that you didn't do something before your child was out of the house. And I know that seems a little bit harsh, but I've seen so many people do it. They blame their kids. And one of the things that I'm going through right now is figuring out where I'm going to live after my son gets out of high school. Once he turns 18 and decides if he's going to go to college or if he's going to go live somewhere else, part of being a parent that has older kids, and not necessarily like teenage kids, but in that range where it's like, if in the next 10 years that your child is going to be out on his or her own, then there's just a lot to think about. And some of the options I'm looking at right now as a single parent is, okay, once he's off and good, there's another state that I'm looking at, and it's near the beach. And, I've lived in Florida before, don't necessarily want to go back just because of a number of different reasons, most of it just being distance and travel and, still needing to get back to Indiana where family is at and all of that. But I'm going through all of my different options and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I can't do that until he is out of the house, which isn't necessarily true. I have lots of flexibility with his father, lots of flexibility. We're going back to homeschool for a while. So what I have been sitting down trying to be honest about with myself is, okay, do I really have to wait until he's 18 and graduated from high school to move to this new place? Not necessarily. I mean, when I sit down and I put it all on paper, it could probably happen by the time he's 16. Financially, it could probably happen by the time he's, 14. So we do have some options. It's just a matter of me sitting down and being honest with myself of, do I want to make a major move sometime before he graduates high school? I definitely could. And if I did it sooner, he would already be settled and go through all of his junior high and high school years with those people. So it's not like I would be pulling him in his last couple of years of school. So for me, showing my situation as an example is similar in terms of, okay, we can't redecorate, we can't renovate, we can't do what we want to do with that room until our daughter is gone. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, well, yeah, like she needs to be gone for them to use that room, I'm talking about people who have more than one room that's available to them. Which are a good majority of my clients. They may have 3 rooms that they can work with. Okay, so I know you're sitting there thinking, well, yeah, it'd be mean to go into the daughter's room and make it an office when she clearly needs a room while she's still living there. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people that say, okay, we want to use that specific room for this, but it may be tied to something that they're not ready to start yet. Like maybe the dream is to have their own business. And they say, well, we can't start our own business until we have a designated space as an office so that we can do the work for the business. But then, we really want to use our daughter's room as an office, and that's not going to happen, her leaving until 3 or 4 years or whatever it is. So it's like, okay, well, why don't you take the corner of any room? Because really, I've done my own taxes for years. And when they talk about designating office space, it's usually a square footage. And so you kind of take the square footage of the corner of the room that you're using for your office, and then that's what goes on your taxes. And if it's not a tax thing and it's a space thing, then all it takes is a nightstand. I've done that before where I've just taken a simple nightstand and I've set up my computer and I have my little mouse and, even recording, I may have a microphone, and that doesn't take up a lot of space. So if it's something you really want to do, you will find the space to do it in. People work out of their cars, they work out of hotel rooms, they work out of, kitchen nooks. So finding the space to do something is not the reason why you're avoiding it. So you have to say to yourself, why am I coming up with this excuse? Why am I not creating the space for myself? Why am I not following through on my plan to get organized? What is that about? So now that we've kind of covered that, I know that was just kind of one excuse, but the other excuses that trickle off of that pretty much have to do with the similar type of vibe of, well, I really need to get a new car. We're actually going to get a pickup truck. And once we get a pickup truck, then we'll be able to haul off that couch. And then once the couch is out of the way, then we're going to move the TV stand over there. And then that will clear up some room in front of the closet. And it's all excuses. Okay. And I get it. Like sometimes it is financial. Sometimes you're waiting for a tax check. Okay. Or you're waiting for a promotion, or you're waiting for your holiday bonus and hoping it's not the jelly of the month club, right? So you may have a specific amount that is coming to you at a certain time and you're waiting for that. And this is what I say to you. If you have something that you want to do, normally after a few months of it nagging you, that's when you need to do it. So if you decide this week, okay, I really want to turn that closet into just a small home office. It's a guest closet. I'm not using it for clothes. I can take some of the totes out of there. I can put in a little desk. If that's something you decide this week and you want to wait a few weeks just to make sure that that's what you want to do with that space, that's fine. If in 3 months from now, you're still feeling like you need to use that space as a little office, and then you start saying, well, in another 3 to 4 months, I'll get my tax check and then I can buy a new desk. I can get a new computer. I can decorate it. I can get some it just goes on and on. Then the whole project is now like a 6-month project. It's like you've already known for 3 months that you wanted to do it. And now you're going to wait another 3 months until you have money to put into it. And there are certain projects that you have to have money to get started, but organizing is not one of them. So I always tell people, when you use money as an excuse to not get organized, then it's automatic red flag excuse. Okay, so Ziploc bags, reusable Amazon boxes. I've talked about this before in the old school organizing episode, so you can go back. I'm like pointing different directions. You know where to go. Just somewhere else to get to another episode. Click back, go to those episodes where I talk about organizing on a budget, because Ziploc bags, reusing Amazon boxes, manila folders, file boxes, sheet protectors, all those things that have worked for years, like the cheap dollar Rubbermaid containers, the little shoe boxes. There's so many ways that you can get organized and you don't have to spend a lot of money. And if you feel like you need to pay an organizer to come help you do it, most organizers will work in phases with you. That's something I do. I may go out and spend 2 hours with someone and they're like, well, that's all I can afford right now. And I'm like, okay, well, this is your homework. And if you think that you're going to have trouble keeping up with that homework, then maybe you just pay me for 1 hour every month as kind of like an accountability coach. And then you're saying, okay, I know last month you told me to work on this. I got part of it done, but not all of it. So then we get on the phone, and just as though you were working with a personal trainer, you say, okay, well, I didn't do everything I was supposed to do. And then I say, okay, so let's get back on track. Let's do the things I asked you to do. And then on top of that, I'm going to throw in 1 or 2 more things. And then in a month from now, we're going to do another hour together. And if that stuff isn't done, we need to figure out why. We need to figure out why you're not doing your homework and the things that you know for a fact will get you to a better organized place. Now, I'm going to come back around to the whole competing thing. So I competed in 18 and 19. I did my whole COVID excuse. We're in 2025. I have been working out since COVID. I have gone through a couple of cutting out sugar diets. I've gone back to my macros. I, for a while, really hit a wall, like really bad. Like my excuses were, okay, I just need to get us moved to a bigger place. Well, that has nothing to do with working out, following my macros, and doing everything I need to do to compete again. Now, competing is expensive, but everything you buy for a fitness competition can be reused. It's not like a red carpet where you wear something once and you just can't be seen at it again. If you buy a competition suit and you go to a fitness competition, you may turn around and wear that suit 2 other times that year to 2 other competitions, or it becomes a backup suit, or it becomes a posing suit. And then once you pay for your membership for the year, it's for the entire year. So you can compete as many times as you want once you pay that one fee. So for me, I knew deep down inside that if I really, really worked hard and did all of the things that I did back in 2018, 2019, and even the beginning of 2020, if the people in my inner circle saw me doing all of those things and I said, I can't afford to get a new suit. Like, I've paid my membership fee. I could buy the shoes. I could buy the jewelry. I can pay for the spray tan, whatever it is. If I had one thing left on my list, I know a few people that would say, well, I'm going to sponsor you. Okay, well, then that solves it, doesn't it? Then I have to compete. So, yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, there's that scared look sometimes of like, oh, okay, well, so I haven't been doing that because I have been able to fall back on the excuse of, well, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do it because of this. And once someone solves that problem for us, then it holds us accountable, and then we feel like we have to do it. We not only feel an obligation to the people that we're talking to about it, but we realize that that's when we feel an obligation to ourselves to follow through. And that can be really scary because we don't know what's going to happen 3 years from now. Like I said, I sacrificed a lot. I sacrificed a lot of good food. I sacrificed a lot of, just going out with friends, whether it was brunches or movies with popcorn and butter and chocolate and, all these different things I sacrificed because I wanted to do this one competition. And it was fine in 2018. It was fine in 2019. But then in 2020, it didn't work out. And so it's like, it worked out in 2001 when I competed the first time. It worked out in 2011 when I competed the second time. And then it worked out those other 2 years right before COVID. So the only time it didn't work out was time number 5. And I think at some point in the past couple of weeks, it just really hit me that if I keep making excuses, at some point I'm going to have to admit the fact that number 4 was it. And if I really thought that number 4 was it, I wouldn't have even thought about giving up another Thanksgiving meal, another Christmas dinner, all the sweets, all the, charcuteries, like all the fun stuff of eating. I wouldn't have given all of that up if I didn't think there was a number 5 in me in 2020. So what I had to do recently was say, okay, I keep talking about how there's going to be a number 5, and I keep saying, well, once I turn 45, which now is this July, it's like once I turn 45, I'll be in that category, and then that will mean this and that will mean that. But then I'm like, okay, so, we're already in May. And for me to compete, there's a lot I have to do by August. And then there's a lot for me to do before November. And that's like the last show. That's the last time this year that I can do it. So if I don't get going on it now, I miss out on another year. And like I said, I've missed 2020 up until 2024. All this time I could have been doing it because I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know when we were going to move again. I didn't know, obviously, if another competition was going to be canceled after all this time of working on it. And so, yes, it's scary. And we will talk about this whole concept of the fear of planning ahead and following through with projects and all of that. We're going to talk about that more when we get to that episode 2 in the hoarding series about COVID hoarders. Because it's not just about stuff. It's not just about hoarding stuff. It's about this mentality of, what if we start doing this and it doesn't happen? Because COVID was out of all of our control and it really messed all of us up. Not just with me and competing, but I had some health stuff that I had to take care of that got pushed off. And I had some business stuff that I let kind of lapse. And so it's like, I don't want to keep making excuses. I want to get organized. And for me, the actual goal isn't organizing because I'm already so organized that I help other people get organized. That doesn't mean I don't have my moments. Yeah, that's right. That doesn't mean that I don't have moments where it's difficult or I struggle with, where do I put this? I don't know if I need this. But it's not something that I have to really think about anymore. It's just part of life. We're bringing stuff in, stuff has to go out. But these are all very, very small decisions for me. So when I look at clients and they're struggling with this part, it can be difficult for me sometimes because I have really worked that muscle, that organizing muscle. For me right now, it's I got to eat what I say I'm going to eat. I've got to train when I say I'm going to train. It's a whole different goal, and it has to do with discipline and very, very strict discipline. And knowing that I could be very, very strict with myself, I could be very disciplined, and I could miss out on a lot of fun, cool things. And then that stupid competition could get canceled in November of 2025. But I also know that it's not going away ever. If there is something that made it through something like COVID and it came back because enough people were interested in it, then it's going to be there. If for some reason that competition gets canceled, then it's like, well, when's the next one? Now I've got an extra 2 weeks or 3 weeks to continue refining and really dialing in on, what do I want to look like? What does my water situation look like? Do I have everything, all the accessories I need for the show? So I think to myself, if that were to ever happen again, and I was that far in, I had been that dedicated, and then something happened, what would happen to me then? Would I cave the same way that I did before? Or would I have the confidence in knowing that this isn't the end? This isn't forever. No matter what falls in my path, no matter what tree lands and I can't get through and I've got to go around it or I have to wait for that to be cleared, this is going to happen. It's going to happen because when you have something that you really, really want to do, you're not going to say to yourself, well, I'll do that 3 years from now. You're going to say to yourself, I really need to do that now because there may be a time when I won't have a chance. And so even when it comes to organizing your space, you need to think to yourself, I really want to move that from that room to that room, or I really want to get rid of that whole system and start fresh. Yes, you can wait to get a slightly bigger budget, or yes, you can wait for confirmation that you're going to live in that place, you're going to do that thing, you're going to have this job, your kid's going to go off in that direction, but I think it's going to eat at you. And that's one thing that I have talked with clients about over the years is I may start a project with them in, let's say 2015, maybe I met a client and started a project. Maybe it was a small project, but they said to me, okay, in 2 years from now, this is our plan. We're going to move this to here and we're going to do this to that. 9 times out of 10, if I come back around and say, did you ever do that project? And they say no, it never really comes down to a good excuse. It's normally because, well, yeah, we thought we wanted to do that, and then it just seemed like it was going to be too big of a project, and then my husband decided to do this instead, and, then we went to this, on this trip, and we spent a bunch of money, and so it's like, okay, so that project, as much as you talked about it, wasn't that important to you. And of course, then sometimes they get offended and they're like, no, we want to do it. I think sometimes there are certain things that enter your mind as a good idea, and then you change your mind, but then it's really hard to pick up that excuse and take it with you. It's like, that seemed like a really good idea. And instead of just saying, you know what, like we've made all these excuses about why it hasn't happened, we really don't have a good reason. We don't really know at this point what we want. Now, some people are very good at saying, I don't know what I want. A lot of people make excuses because it's just easier. It's easier to say, this happened to me, or I'm waiting on this person to tell me this. I can't do anything until I hear from, my realtor, or I can't do anything until this office calls me back about this permit. And like I said, that there are some good excuses as to why things get delayed or they just don't happen. But for the most part, it's because people have decided that it's just easier to say that something else happened and there's just no way they're going to be able to follow through with it. And that's the human nature, and that's what trips us up all the time. There is a motivational audio thing that I listen to when I'm in the gym, and there's all different sayings that they have, and some of them stick with me longer than others. But there's something that one of them says about you can recognize a loser by if he's making excuses or something like that. And I'm sorry, that's not it doesn't sound like very profound, but the more I listen to it, it's like, okay, if I'm making an excuse, then I'm a loser. And it's not in the normal sense of, okay, I didn't do this, I'm a loser, I'm never going to do this, I'm never going to win. It's just you have that mentality of either I'm going to do this, this is going to get done, and it's going to get done now, or this is never going to happen for me, I don't know why I'm trying, I can't do this because of that, and I'm waiting on this to do that. And so it's more about your mentality and the fact that you have to learn to push through the feeling that you're going to fail. And you have to learn to get rid of those excuses in order to be honest about what you want and where you're going. Because if not, it's very, very easy to let someone else or something else decide for you. So as I wrap up this episode, I want you to keep in mind whatever has been on your mind as far as either an organizing project or cleaning up your space. Are you waiting for more manpower? Are you waiting for more money? Or is there really no good excuse as to why you can't get a system in place or you can't start that renovation? If all the money is there and you've got plans and you've got people and you're like, well, I think it may just be better if we wait, then it's your own hang up and it's your own fear. And sometimes even an organizer or even your therapist or a friend or a family member isn't going to shake you of that. It takes a lot of inner work. And again, I'm not a mental health professional, but it's something that we need to explore. Why do we keep making excuses for the things we really want to do? And at the end of the day, if you're not letting go of those excuses, then yes, you're going to listen to the first part of this episode and think, oh, good, we're going to talk about how to organize my excuses because I've got a lot of them, right? So just keep in mind that everyone is going to have excuses at different points in their lives, and some of them are good, most of them are not. If we're coming up with more excuses than solutions, we need to balance that out. We need to find a way to make it happen. So if there's any way that I can help you do that, whether it's online or in person, you know where to go, labeledorganizing.com, click the contact button. I normally say thank you for listening, but today I will say thank you for listening and thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.